This extreme intransigence and obduracy drew a lot of public comments. Majority of those comments very negative for the Senate. And precisely it happened to one of our colleagues, that's Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, who, against Order 6 of our standing order, whereby the Senate President is variously and particularly strengthened by the statutes to allocate seats to senators. And we know that within the Senate chamber, a senator can be allocated any seat. And since no senator is allocated a seat outside the Senate chamber, we think that the Senate President is in order in this wise. The media trolled the Senate variously and precariously from that Thursday. And I, as the spokesperson of the Senate, I had to go about trying to mend those broken pieces of the images and integrity of the 10th Senate, which I think should not have happened. And like I said, I reiterated that the Senate is not for skit making. It's not for content creation, whereby we show off before cameras, for the media to take pictures, take shots, snapshots, TikTok, and so on and so forth. And then we exhibit so that we can play the underdog, and then the general public, who might be very oblivious of the guiding rules of the Senate, can poo-poo the Senate. So this brouhaha went on up till today. And I know, because as we are here, some media houses are still even inviting me to come and explain off further what transpired. Our guiding rules, which is our testament and our catechism, our own Bible and our own Quran, which we all subscribe to religiously, embodies and epitomizes the whole Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Any action against it is an action against the Senate. It's not an action against the Senate President. Mr. President, sir, we were told when we were growing up as toddlers that where there is no law, there's no sin. But we have laws. Then it means that any contravention of that law is a sin. And where there is sin, there must be penalty. And where there is penalty, we expect penitence. And going further, it's not about the sitting arrangement only. We are made to believe about, to see expletives being rained on the leadership of the Senate, on the allocation of committees, which dividedly we ask, were we voted for in our constituencies as chairmen or committee members? No. We have our primary assignment, secondary and tertiary assignment. These are just auxiliary assignments.
The integrity of the Senate cannot be compromised. This is the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And like you said in the morning, even at the Constitution, Section 1, Subsection 2, any act of even National Assembly that is inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution is void to the extent of its inconsistency. So any behavior, any act or omission of any senator that stand inconsistent with the provision of the Red Book, our guideline, is void and of no effect. And as a matter of fact, the men in chambers are people of integrity. Mr. Senate President, I am very privileged to be here as a senator to meet very distinguished names that I've been hearing on the front of newspapers. So, Mr. Senate President, the men that are seated here are men of integrity, and their names are protective. Even yourself, Your Excellency, you serve as governor for 8 years. You have been minister. You have been conferred with national honors. So this integrity cannot be destroyed in one day. And like I said, I quoted you this morning, you said any act of parliament that's inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution is to the extent of its consistency void and of no effect. Attorney General of Bende State and Attorney General of Federation. Any behavior, any act or omission of any senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that's inconsistent with the Red Book is to the extent of its consistency void and of no effect. And we owe the public a duty of explanation, which I think Adaramodu has formulated and distilled very well. It's not an emotional matter. And we have very many committees in the Senate that handle issues like this. The Ethics Committee is there. We could refer matters like this to them to give us better diagnosis of the issue and what we can do in accordance with our rule.
Clearly enough is that there is no one of our colleagues here who does not have an opinion on this issue. Whether they even speak out or not, everybody has an opinion. But we are all united on one thing. Our rules must be respected, because that is what binds us together. People will serve for 8 years as governor, chief executive in states. People will serve as honorable ministers of this federal republic, and they will still go to the nooks and crannies of their villages and constituencies to go and contest election, to come to this hallowed chamber. It is because there is something about the Senate. And under our watch, we are not going to allow this institution to be discredited. We are not going to leave behind, for those coming after us, an institution that is any weaker than what we inherited.
I think part of the problem is when people come from courts, court-declared senators, they miss the orientation. The management of the National Assembly is hereby ordered to organize periodic orientation, particularly for senators who are midstreamers, who can midstream and did not start when their colleagues started. Because I remember that this particular senator, on the day she was sworn in, raised her hand to speak. I was scared, but I had to recognize her because I was saying, you just gave her the rule book. Part of what we give to you when you are sworn in is a standing order of the Senate. So I said, has she even opened the rule book to know what she's going to say? But she made a contribution on that day. I think 2 days later, she brought a motion. There's nothing wrong in being vibrant, but there's a lot wrong when you don't know anything about the procedure. You can't be a Reverend Father and go and start the church service with communion. You must lay foundation. So let me refer you to section 66 of our rule book. Section 66, subsection 1. It says, the President of the Senate or the chairman, maybe while sitting as chairman of committee of the whole, after having called the attention of the Senate or of the committee to the conduct of a senator who persists in irrelevance or tedious repetition, either of his own arguments or of the argument used by other senators in debate, may direct him to discontinue his speech. So even when you are talking, the Senate President has a right to ask you to discontinue your speech. If you want to be a senator, please learn that this is our guiding principle. All the things that they are saying outside. Here, this book here gives the power to the Senate President to even suspend a senator for at least 14 legislative days without reference to any committee. And that means if we are sitting 3 times in a week, that comes to about 5 weeks without reference to any committee. And that stands. But on that day, you will notice that after we pleaded with her to speak from her seat, and she refused, I think our colleagues rushed to her and attempted to mute her microphone. I did not mute the microphone because, as at that day, we didn't have the capacity for the Senate President to mute the microphone from here because of the new installation we have here. Our colleagues went there and tried to mute the microphone to plead with her not to talk. But later on, I sent somebody from here to go and tell them to unmute the microphone so that she can ventilate her grievances. I wanted to hear why she would not move. But when I listened to what Senator Adaramodu brought, I found out that the reason why she did not obey the Senate standing order was because she wanted to position herself where the camera can see her. And so the standing orders of the Senate will not matter unless she sits where the cameras can see her. But I want to let you know that here is an instrument placed before the Senate President that the moment you press that you want to talk, it gives a signal here. So whether I see you directly by raising your hand or not, I will see you on the instrument before me. So there is no senator that is not covered here. There is no place that you speak from that the camera will not catch you.
I agree completely, and I want my colleagues to agree completely too. Mr. President, we're sorry for what happened because the Senate has been in the public domain for discussions that are definitely not for what we were elected here. And we can avoid this distraction. And like I said, we have committees. And one particular committee is responsible for detecting infractions of our rules and possible recommendations, even sanctions. But Mr. President, we see you as first one among equals, but the presiding officer of this Senate, and therefore the father of this Senate. In spite of some provocations, in spite of some offenses, Mr. President, we ask you to tolerate some of our actions that are not in tandem with democratic and parliamentary practices. These things once in a while will occur, but please, we want to ask that while we are referring this matter to a relevant committee, let us ponder on the drama that unfolded on that day and see how we can mitigate against the possible consequences on the integrity and the image of this institution so that we can move forward in the interest of this country. I so submit, Mr. President.
So those in support that the disorderly conduct of our colleague, distinguished Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, we referred to the Senate Committee on Ethics and Privileges for necessary further action. Say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So the matter is hereby referred to the Committee on Ethics and Privileges and Committee on Conduct, Code of Conduct, Ethics and of course, and Public Petitions. Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petitions, headed by distinguished Senator Natasha to look into it and advise the Senate, revert to us within 2 weeks.